This is Michael Woodward, and this is Season 2, Episode 34 of the Jumblethink Podcast.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Jumblethink Podcast. We explore the ideas and dreams behind some of the leading entrepreneurs from around the world. Along the way, we will give you some tips and ideas of how you can chase your own big ideas and dreams and change the world around you. Our guest on today's episode is Rachel Brenke. More about Rachel in a moment. Our guest on Thursday's episode is Mike Compton of Three Chairs Productions. We dive into the world of creativity, ideas, storytelling, and collaboration. He gives us some great insights on how we can use video to effectively tell our story. Make sure to check out Thursday's episode with our guest, Mike Compton. Now let's jump into today's episode. Hey there, welcome to the Jumblethink Podcast. My name is Michael Woodward. I am your host and so excited about today's guest. Her name's Rachel Brenke. We're going to learn more about her in a moment. But first, I want to encourage you, wherever you're listening to this podcast, click that subscribe button. You can find us in all the usual places like Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Play, and so many other amazing places to listen to podcasts. So go over to your favorite place to listen to podcasts and click that subscribe button. Now let's take a moment and learn a little bit about today's guest, Rachel Brenke.
My name is Rachel Brenke. I have multiple businesses, but the mothership is Rachel Brenke. How original. And I am the head honcho, although let's be real, my whole team are actually the real bosses. They keep me in line. I am an attorney and business consultant. So all of my brands are legal and business strategy information in different industries with legal content, legal templates and guides to help people be protected in growing of their businesses. I knew that I wanted to do this when I was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 20. And I looked at my son, who I only had one at the time, and I realized if I make it through this, I want to be able to be with him, and I want to be able to help other people have the same thing. And that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing now. I find fulfillment through my job. I hate to call it a job because I love it and I enjoy it so much, but I find fulfillment in being able to help other people, particularly mothers, be able to craft the life for what they want. They get to be in charge of their business. They get to be in charge of their schedule. They can be there for their kids, travels, athletic pursuits, personal hobbies, whatever it is. Whenever I hear one of my clients or audience members has said, "Thank you, you've helped me to be able to put life before business," that's when I have great fulfillment on that side. But I also get fulfillment when I can fix my own schedule. So then in the middle of the day, I can go to my kids' awards ceremony or us be able to take a vacation without it really impacting negatively on my career or having to ask somebody else for permission. I find what I do to be really significant and impactful in people's lives because they can have a career, but they can have life before the career. I feel like a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we fall into this idea of being busy all the time. And I want those that I help to be busy, but I want to be busy with the important things in life. So that at the end, they didn't think, "Oh, I just wish that I had spent one more hour answering client emails." Instead, they're looking back and going, "I'm so glad that I had all that extra time with my family." And I feel that's incredibly significant in this day and age where it's go, 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 rat race all the time. It's time to flip the script and make a significant impact on our own lives. And so I feel like I'm doing that for others. One challenge that I am really working on to overcome in my own business is management of people. I find that people are the best and maybe hardest thing when it comes to business. And so I'm still learning to be a manager. I've been doing this for a decade plus, and I'm still learning and growing and making mistakes. Thankfully, I have a team that gives me grace and helps me to learn in the process. But I do find that managing people is the hardest. The next big goal that I have for my business is to bring on other voices or talent, much like mine, to be help supplement the information that I'm already providing. Up until now, it's been primarily myself talking to an audience, and I would love to be able to bring in other voices and concepts and strategies, different perspectives to reach a wider audience.
In a moment, we'll rejoin our interview with Rachel Brenke. But first, we wanted to let you know about some free resources over at jumblethink.com. we have 2 guides to help you on your journey to chasing your big idea and dream. The first one is how to know when you've found your dream, and the second guide is overcoming the unknown. Both guides give you some tips of making that dream and idea you have a reality. So swing on over to jumblethink.com/guide. That's jumblethink.com/guide, and download our free guides to help you on your journey to chasing your big idea and dream and changing the world around you. Now let's join our conversation with Rachel Brenke. Yes, today, Rachel, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Great.
How are you?
Thanks so much for being on. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Oh, thanks. I love to talk, as you guys will probably see, so I'm excited.
The interview here, I want to make sure that people know how and where they can find you, everything like that. You got a lot going on. So what are some of the best ways for people to connect with you?
I think the best place to go is kind of the mothership website, which is rachelbrenke.com. From there, you guys will be able to find my podcast and then also different niche sites that I have with legal and business information based on which industry that you're in.
Amazing resources there. Spent some time going through the different sites and lots of value there. So if you get some time, definitely go check those out. Let's lay some foundational groundwork for people to understand just how much you're doing, because you're doing a lot. At the legal work that you do, you have Fit Legal, you have Blog Legal, you are a mother of 5, you are also an author that's written so many books, and a photographer and cancer survivor. That I found most impressive is a Team USA athlete doing some like combined sports stuff. So you got a lot going on. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it's so funny when people read kind of my bio, I start thinking, man, what does that person sleep? And then I think, oh, when do I sleep? No, my sleep I take very seriously, and my family and my team is thankful that I take it seriously. But no, I just, I started on my path by wanting to help others. I never wanted to fit into a 9-to-5 in a box, a regular career. While I am a lawyer, I'm not your typical average lawyer at all. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have my hands in a couple of businesses that I don't really highlight. They're more of, they're not a lot about my online presence. They're more like local community, co-working spaces, etc. And I've learned a lot through that from the legal and business side. Then I have my law degree. I'm a licensed attorney and an MBA, yada, yada, all the educational stuff. But I feel like that combined with my real world experience as an entrepreneur and doing all these other things, like you talked about, training, competing with Team USA, having the 5 kids, the husband, and all of that, I feel like I bring a really good perspective on how to manage and protect a business. And that's my end goal, is just to help people to be able to make sure that their businesses that you guys are working so hard for is legally protected, and also the best efficient and strategic actions that you can take, because I don't have time. I have 24 hours. You have 24 hours. I don't have time to screw around. I know you guys don't want to either. So all my information that I share is trying to cut through the BS, get to the point, and help you guys be as strategic and legally protected, no matter what industry that you're in.
Top of the interview, you were sharing a little bit about your journey. You say at the age 20, you find out you have cancer, and it makes a pretty dramatic shift in some of your values of how you view the world and the decisions you want to make. Tell us a little bit about that shift, maybe where you were going and how that experience set you on the path you're on today.
Yeah, I kind of always knew that I had a interest in law, but I didn't really know kind of what avenue I wanted to take. And I also knew I wanted to help people. I had no idea what it would become. At the time when I was 20, we had a 1-year-old, and my husband was being deployed to Iraq for I don't even know what time. I mean, multiple times he's gone. And they go, oh, you have cancer. And I'm like, oh, really? Because I'm only 20. And yeah, it was so crazy. But through the whole thing, like, I wasn't scared of dying. I didn't have like these major regret story. Really, the main thing was I looked at my son and I thought, if I make it through this, I want to be as present as possible. I want to be here for him. Little did I know we'd go on to have 4 more kids after that. And that's what I wanted to do. And then I thought, you know what? I'm doing it. After, a couple years later, I was then working the different businesses. I was able to set my own schedule and kind of I work where I land. And I was like, you know what? I want other moms or dads, I want other people to have this exact same opportunity that I've had. And that's just kind of been my whole perspective going through all this. Legal stuff is great. You need to have that under control. You need to know your cost of doing business and your marketing brand, yada, yada. We all know that. We hear that in all these podcasts. But really, the foundational aspect is how can you significantly impact your life for the better of what you want? And how can you do that for others? And that's kind of my mission with my business. And all because of the cancer, I also encourage other, my clients and stuff to have the same perspective when they go out to do their own
I love the
entrepreneurial.
fact that in this journey, you're looking at life, you're assessing what you value, and you make the choices to say, I want to live life on my terms, not on somebody else's terms. I want to choose the lifestyle I have, the things that I value, and I want to put the time, energy, and passion behind those things. When you made that decision to go away from just the traditional law and start exploring the ideas of how can I help others do the same kind of thing, leaving the known to the unknown, you go into these new ventures and you start creating this voice, this message of significance that says you can do this too. What's kind of the reception you've received from people?
It's interesting. We talk about this now when there is like a mass amount of online business coaches and education, everything's so accessible. When I first started doing this, there really wasn't a lot. I mean, this was pre-Facebook days. I mean, we're in the crappy MySpace profiles that you had. And that was still even relatively new. Like social media, I mean, we had like AOL Instant Messenger, and that was like the of social media, so to speak. And so I say that to say that, my family and my friends didn't necessarily understand what I was trying to do, because I knew to reach the most amount of people I could do it online. And I had learned that during the time of the cancer, as well as my husband being deployed, that I had connected with so many people on personal levels online. I thought, I could do this business wise. So my family and them, they're not unsupportive. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that it wasn't as readily understood then as it is now. I mean, I feel like there's probably less barriers and less foreign misconceptions, now than there were then. I've always had a really supportive husband, parents, and I've really been lucky with that. But I was also really smart about it too. It was a risk, but it also wasn't. I still did work in the corporate world for a little while I built my businesses. So it wasn't like one day that I had like an eat, pray, love moment. I threw everything up and I just walked away. I still very conservative and was working and reinvesting everything that I was making back into the business. Yes, I was also lucky at the time that I had a spouse who also was bringing in income. And maybe my situation, I feel like my journey would have been slower had I not necessarily had that available, because I would have had less money to reinvest. But I still feel like that process, when you feel like you don't have two dimes to rub together, if you're just smart about it and be as efficient about it, totally bootstrap your business. You can
so
do
you
it.
have the legal background, and so many entrepreneurs, when they start out of passion. They start with the whole concept of, I love doing this, whatever this is. And if it's blogging or podcasting, or maybe it's starting or launching the next big product or app, whatever it is, they are living off passion, pushing forward with their idea, and they don't look at some of the things that they should be looking at. Because you have the legal background, how people can start getting that knowledge and knowing what they need to know from a legal standpoint to help that journey of launching their big passion idea.
So that was the thing. When I first started all this, I wasn't a lawyer at the time. I hadn't even gone my MBA. So I was setting up an apparel store and other type of businesses locally. And I realized, again, we didn't have the onslaught of online information. I make it sound like it was like in the Stone Age, y'all. Like it wasn't that long ago, but it wasn't as much as now, where you can't turn on Facebook without seeing ads, and so I share that to say I was having the exact same struggles, and there was a lot that I was doing that I look back now and go, oh my gosh, you'd be horrified if your client did that, because a lot of it is you just don't
Right.
know what you don't know. And I am the first to say that legal stuff is not fun. It is not sexy. It is not something you want to run to invest your money in because you don't necessarily see a tangible return. But being a lawyer and being someone who's been doing this for how many years and wanting to protect my personal stuff from business and protect the business that I have spent so long building, and I can run through a couple of things kind of that they can look at to protect. I just see so many entrepreneurs who come to me because I own my own firm with my partner, and they come to us after the fact. And when it's time to play cleanup on aisle 4, and it's much harder to clean up a spill than if we had avoided breaking the glass in the first place. And it's more costly. And it's because of a couple things. One, you don't
Right.
know what you don't know. Well, I've given that solution. I've given that solution to multiple industries through my podcast. The information's out there. I'm not the only one. I don't have the corner on the market for that. I just feel like I have a unique perspective than many lawyers that are out there blogging about it. So that information's there. So you can't say you don't know because there's people providing this information and services available for you. The other thing too is you don't necessarily see the value in it because you don't see a tangible return. Like when you go to get a logo created, you pay someone, you get a logo in return. When it comes to legal stuff, yeah, you could pay me and you get a contract in return, but you don't really see any benefit
Right.
out of it. You know what I mean? Like you don't actually see like the usage or attracting people or preventing issues. And that's why it's a hard sell, quote unquote hard sell to people. And I don't mean that from like a financial perspective, but you don't want to invest your funds because you just don't know if you really need it or if it's going to be a worthwhile investment. But I share all that to say, let me give you one of the classic examples. I work with a lot of clients, entrepreneurs who
Okay.
sell services. And they will not get a contract drafted and they will do it themselves. And then they'll either end up drafting against themselves or it'll be an invalid contract. And this situation's not just one of my clients. It's many of these clients that have come to me for help. Instead of paying maybe $600 to get a contract drafted or reviewed up front, they end up spending $5, $6, $10, $12,000
Wow.
fighting it in court, plus
Wow.
the time and energy. So, and that's not an extreme example. That's a typical example. And I share that. Yes, I hope it put a little fear into some of the listeners. And I don't say that from a selfish standpoint of being a lawyer. I say it from a heartfelt standpoint of being an entrepreneur. You guys do not want to be the ones at the other end of the phone of me telling you you're going to have to pay out X or you're going to have to pay a lawyer X when you could have prevented it. So things like services contracts, if you're selling, services, people are contracting you for a specific service, selling of products. If you're an online e-commerce, you need to have like terms of use and privacy policy. You guys need to understand how intellectual property works. You can't just take someone else's image and use it on your commercial social media feed. That's a huge one. Like that's probably the number one thing that we deal with in the law firm now is copyright infringement. I could just go on and on, but those are the biggest hard pressing issues that I see entrepreneurs have that are they could prevent by one, simply investing in a lawyer to help guide them, and two, taking it upon yourself to also learn the knowledge. As a CEO running these businesses, your hand should touch every single position in your business. Some of my favorite restaurants, I used to wait tables when I was in high school and college, and I actually do attribute that employment to a lot of what I've learned about customer service. But some of the best restaurants I ever worked for that had the best management and owners were those that knew how to run the dishwasher, who knew how to cook this steak this way, or, prep that, because I had done every single job. And I think as entrepreneurs, we fall into it. And I'm kind of going on a rant here, but we go into a mindset of outsource because it's the most efficient. But I tell people to stop. Don't outsource until you actually understand it. And legal and business strategy stuff is super important because not every lawyer is good. You don't want to just blindly hand it to a lawyer and trust them. You need to be knowledgeable of why you're choosing to be an LLC or a corporation, or understand what you want included in your contract and let the lawyer fill in the legal holes. These are the things that entrepreneurs need to be really mindful of. So don't listen to this podcast and walk away and think, oh, I'll just hire a lawyer. You still need to learn. And these things that I've just outlined are just some of the basics to get you guys started, of like contracts, website terms, and in copyright and some trademark infringement stuff. Just understand how that works, and that will put you guys worlds ahead of your competitors as well.
Some nitty gritty here of like how we can approach this.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm that person with a big idea. Maybe it started as a passion and a hobby, and I was doing it on the side, and now I'm going, hey, you know, maybe this thing has some potential for being a business. What maybe are the first steps I should take towards that journey of moving from this is something I like doing, it's a hobby, it's kind of fun, but maybe I can make it into a business? What do they need to do next?
I would sit down and start researching, which I know some resources, hint, hint, but I would start researching or talk to a local lawyer before you do anything. I mean, before you create a course, before you come up with an app name and grab the domain, because you may be infringing upon someone's trademark. It's so funny.
Yeah.
I have to share this story, and he gave me permission to do this. But on my own podcast, I was interviewing a friend of mine. And before we went on, I said, oh, tell me about your new course. Let me see the name. And while he was telling me about it, the name just struck me as something interesting. So I clicked over and did a trademark search. And had he released it, like it was before launch, and he was doing all of these guest appearances on podcasts, and come to find out, someone had already trademarked the course name of the exact same material in the exact same industry, exact same name. And I was like, whoa, dude, we cannot record with that. You cannot use that anymore. And he just was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because had he done it, he could have been sued. He could have had to disgorge profits from his course. He would have had to rebrand everything after the fact. He would have lost that branding, steam that he had already gotten with his audience. So I say all that to say, that's maybe one isolated type incident, but business name, business slogans, course names, product names, talk to an attorney, get the research, and just tell them your entire business plan. I don't tell my clients to come in the door with a whole pre-written business plan, but we'll walk through and I'll say, what's the name? What do you plan to do? What products or services are you going to provide? How much do you have to invest in certain business structures, choosing LLC or corporation? If you've noticed, I don't recommend you be in anything but one of those, because I haven't said proprietor. I don't recommend that at all. And that's the thing. Yeah, I would sit down and talk to an intellectual property and or business attorney to look at that, your business structure, what your plan is, the names. If you have a certain product, make sure that you're all in line, not infringing upon patents, etc. Just because once the cat is out of the bag, it's really hard to put it back in, and it's very costly. And I don't want that for any of you guys. And once you start talking to an attorney, they can walk you through, if they're a good one. And this is actually a really good tip. If you go to a lawyer and they just are like, well, what can I do for you? Let me take your order, like we're at a restaurant.
Okay.
Run away. Doesn't mean that they're a bad lawyer. I just am really partial to the attorneys, myself and others that I've worked with, who sit down and have more of a business entrepreneurial mindset. Where do you plan to go with this? What do you plan to do? Because then you can make decisions based on the future as opposed to just now and then have to redo something.
Now, you
on.
are an attorney now, so you have been on the entrepreneurial side. You still are. You've also had the legal background to know and experience others who have the way that they didn't know were bad decisions. In that journey of finding the right attorney for them, because I'm sure that attorney, depending on your field or what you're doing, what are some steps people can really go to vet through that process and find the right partner? Because I see it as a partnership. It's not just your attorney, they're a partner in helping you succeed.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought it up that way, because like I just mentioned, we don't want it to be like this order taker type of situation, because also if it's that way, you're not going to feel the value. Off the bat, you need to value the services that are going to be provided. And if you have more of a DIY, and this is a downfall of entrepreneurs, we're passionate and we want to do things, and many of us are type A, so we want to do things our way. And I fully embrace and recognize that I am that way. But the downfall of that is that you fall into the trap of wanting to DIY. So oftentimes when people go to an attorney, it's kind of more of a halfway investment. They're not really, they're not really putting a lot of value in the attorney, because in the back of their mind, they're thinking, I could do this myself. And I think you need to get out of the mindset of A, no, you can't do it yourself, and B, you shouldn't be doing it yourself. You should know enough to know what's going on, but not for you to do the follow through, not even just from a legal perspective, but also just from a business perspective. You don't need to be muddying yourself down trying to figure out how to draft a contract. There's a reason we went to law school and passed the bar. Anyways, to answer the question with that, the first mindset is a mindset of value and recognize that they can provide for you. The second one is to make sure that they have an understanding of the industry that you're in, or they've worked with clients who have been in your industry before. I get clients all the time that it's not necessarily industries that I've worked with, but I also tell them that, and I'm very upfront, create a relationship, create a partnership, and we learn it together. And I'm willing to go the extra mile to do the research to better understand. And I also am of the mindset that an attorney should say, I don't understand that. I can't take this for you, to be honest about it, so that it best serves both of you guys. And you can tell if someone doesn't have any understanding about what you're wanting or your industry, and they're just wanting you as a client, run away. You really want someone who's invested in you and your business as well.
Remember when, for years, I operated my first business as a sole proprietorship. It was, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was going to change that along the way and got bad advice, and it didn't come back to hurt me. But, as we launched Jumblethink, which was a new brand, a new business doing things completely different, I was talking to a good friend of mine, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm setting up an S Corp. And he's like, I did it myself. It's real easy. You can do it too. And in the back of my mind, I'm just sitting there going, I probably could do it myself. One, I don't want to do it myself. And two, I want that peace of mind to know that this is the best thing for me, and that the person doing it is going to do it right, where I may think I'm doing it right, only to find out later that I was mistaken. And so I completely agree with that, that you should have that knowledge where you have a baseline, but then you have the experts that come alongside you to help you along the journey and make sure that you're doing everything that you should in a way that you should.
Well, let me add on to that too. It's almost like an insurance policy too. If you have a lawyer that drafts your contract, and if there's ever an issue, who can you fall back on if you drafted it yourself? You're not going to sue yourself. Like, you're not going to try to get yourself to solve the problem. And I think of the same thing when it comes to taxes. I know enough to do my own taxes to be dangerous, but I don't, because if there's an issue, then I have some recourse. You know what I mean? First of all, hopefully there's not an issue, but if there is, then I have recourse against someone else. I don't have recourse against myself.
Great observation. I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, I think that's really important, that you're protecting yourself. And that's the whole power of these entities that we have available to us today, is that you're creating a division between yourself and the business. Why is that division, where this is a legal entity and I'm an individual, and there's separation? Why is that so valuable, and how does that protect us?
So the number one thing that people say to me when I talk about what you just said, you need to be in a business structure that separates your personal assets from your business assets. They always say to me, well, I don't have any personal assets because I don't have a house or a family, yada, yada. But then I say, you make money, don't you?
Yeah.
That's an asset, right? So if you get sued personally, you can get a judgment put on your personal assets, including the money that you make to live. So the big goal is, by either choosing like an LLC or a corporation structure, is that when it takes, let's mentally imagine that you have a bucket on the shore. And if you're a sole proprietor, you get one bucket because you're not setting up a legal entity. So it's no separate from yourself. That one bucket has all your personal and your business assets together. So when the wave comes along, and this wave is liability, angry client, pissed off client, whatever, and they knock over this bucket, when they knock over the bucket, what's going to fall out? Your personal and your business assets, both. But when you set up like an LLC or a corporation, you are given two buckets for your LLC. You have one for your business and you have one for your personal. So when that wave comes rolling towards you and you only get to pick up one bucket, you're going to grab your personal one, and only the business one's going to get knocked over.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the goal, is just to keep it so that it is separate as possible. And, you're talking about how doing the S Corp yourself, or your friend was, and we've had issues because it does look really simple, and it does seem really simple when you do it. But we've had issues where clients have DIY, they've set up their own LLC, and they did it wrong, because there are wrong ways to do it. And when they got sued, the LLC protection was not there, even
Wow.
though they thought it would be. So it was, I have to brush my shoulder off to say we ended up getting fixed in court. We were able to get that protection, but without an attorney, and he had to pay extra money, obviously, and time and energy in order to fix that issue, would have spent a lot less had he had it set up properly in the beginning.
Ask one more question before we kind of dive into a different topic here. We hear a lot about corporations. There's this divide between C Corp and S Corp. What are the differences between those? And as an entrepreneur, what things do we need to know about the different entity types?
So the two major entities that we're talking about, LLC and corporation. And I keep referring to it as a corporation because that's actually what the legal entity that you'll set up at a state level is. You don't choose S Corp or C Corp at a state level.
Okay.
The designation of S or C is actually in the tax code, and it's talking to the subchapter S for an S Corp. And it's essentially the tax benefits or the way that your corporation is going to be taxed. You're electing either to be taxed one way or the other. I am definitely partial to S Corps, but that's because I am a single person with all employees. I don't have multiple hands. I don't have investors. This is a very complex question, but so
Okay.
to make it as basic as possible. So my end recommendation for this would be, I find that the majority of people that are, and actually I just misspoke, but I'll clarify here in a second.
Yeah.
I'm actually an LLC with an S Corp election. So I'm actually an LLC at the state level, and then I get taxed as an S Corp from the IRS. And
Oh,
I
wow.
probably just lose the minds. Yeah. So I get to have the benefit of the LLC and the separate bucket protection like we talked about, and then still get an S Corp taxation. So my recommendation would be to first talk to an attorney, because this is one of the big issues out there. People say, well, I'll talk to a CPA about which structure I need to be. Well, your CPA is not drafting your investor document,
Right.
issuing your shares, drafting your operating agreement or your bylaws. And so CPAs have their place. They are fantastic for tax extension strategies. My recommendation would be talk to an attorney first. Basically, verbally regurgitate everything we've talked about in this episode, your name, your plan for the business, what you want. Help them to let you pick a structure, and then talk to your CPA about which is best for taxes. CPAs should not be forming businesses. They should only be advising on what the best tax structure is. So that's kind of why you need a lawyer and CPA in tandem working together for you.
That's really, really cool. The other thing that's really kind of popular right now is this whole corporations for good, or this philanthropic type corporation. And I don't know if you can answer this question, but we hear about some of the states bringing on different kinds of entity types now that are about being philanthropic businesses. Mm-hmm. What do we need to know about that? Is that just a marketing tool? Is that a buzz thing? Is that even something to consider?
I think the problem, because we see this a lot when people are trying to, they'll claim that they're like a nonprofit, but they're not actually a nonprofit. They're not acting in accordance with that, and they end up losing their status and get penalized. So unless you're truly going to fit the definition of what these philanthropic entities or like a nonprofit type of definition, unless you're truly going to stay within those lines, then I wouldn't even bother with it, because there is great oversight on them. There's a great chance of audit. There's a great chance. My bottom line thing, what I'm trying to say is they're setting them up, I think, to help facilitate good, but they're going to have eyeballs on them because there's going to be potential for abuse. And so unless you're truly 100% philanthropic, I wouldn't even bother. If you're going to be a commercial business that's doing philanthropic type activities, obviously this is a bit more than what we can talk about here. Your lawyer would have to look at the structures. But if you're doing any really commercial for gain type of activities, I probably would not suggest looking down that path, because you're probably not going to fit the definition, and you don't want to get pinged in the end. There's other benefits if you're going to be doing philanthropic type stuff or giving back, that you can get deductions and benefits and grants from your state versus this potential for getting pinged for being a structure that you're not.
So we've talked a lot about protecting ourselves, setting up the business correctly. How do we going one step further, really use these tools to protect our relationship with our customers, set great expectations so that the customer gets what they want, but also that we're delivering to them what they expect. So it's a fair exchange. How can we protect that relationship and expectations in the process of working with customers?
That's one of the things that I love to talk about when it comes to contracts is that there's this perspective that, oh, contracts are just a legal tool. It's a nuisance that we sign and get out of the way. But actually, they can work in a variety of ways. The first one is setting expectations. Your contract should essentially mirror the entire relationship and any contingencies or things that may occur between the two of you. And so it sets expectations right off the bat. The second thing is it also allows for, because I find that I laugh because I'm thinking of the movie Liar Liar with Jim Carrey, and entrepreneurs often get this, they get so overridden with fear that they're afraid to tell a customer no. And so what they end up doing is they're trying to tell the customer no, but like with Jim Carrey, he can't say no because he can't lie. He ends up saying yes, and they end up habitually giving away the farm. Contracts could come in and be the no man for you. While you're still the good guy, you can say, per the contract, this is what we agreed to, and this is what we need to fulfill. Now, on the flip side of that, contracts can also be a customer service tool. While you may outline in there, and let's say, for example, you're doing like consulting services and you have it on like an installment plan. And you would outline in there how much is due and when, and any penalties if it's not paid by then. So obviously, if you don't want to allow your client to miss a payment or be late on a payment, it can be the no man for you, and you say, no, it's due on such and such date. But in the inverse, if you want to be able to offer customer service, because maybe your client father died or has had a horrible thing happen, or they just been sick, or you just want to be a nice person, you can say, per the contract, you were supposed to pay by X and X date, but I'm going to go ahead and offer customer service. Don't worry about the penalty on this as long as you pay by this new date. And so I love contracts because they set the legal relationship, they set the parameters, they give us this backbone and can be the no man for us, but it also sets the expectations and lets us be able to offer customer service as the human being that we want to be with our clients.
It's so good. So good. Before we wrap up this portion of the interview, I want to circle back to kind of where we started. You are doing so much. You've got different businesses, you have your family, you've got that athletic stuff that you're doing, you're writing, you're doing all these amazing, amazing things. And I think that most entrepreneurs, or a lot of entrepreneurs, can look at you and say, hey, I can relate to that. I am carrying so many different plates. I'm doing so many different things. How for you do you approach time management, family time management, separating and making sure that you're doing exactly what we talked about, living on your own terms instead of being trapped into a business that you've built instead of just being an employee? It both can be a trap. How do you protect yourself in that space?
So it's easy for me to sit here and say, live the life that you want, because it's not that easy. Right. You have to work in order to get that. I don't mean physically work, but I have to be very purposeful. And there's two major ways. The first is that I schedule everything. Actually, I should say three. First is schedule everything. And so like certain days or podcast interviews or administrative days or writing days. I schedule in all my trainings so that my team knows that I'm unavailable during certain times. My calendar is like a vase. And I take what are the important rocks to me to put into the vase first. So that would be like my family time, my training, my writing. And I put all those rocks into the vase first. And that's like my 24 hours in a day. And then I pour in the sand, which is the business and other obligations and household obligations like cleaning and laundry and grocery shopping and all that. All of that pours in after. So stuff that is not as important, because if I put the sand in first, all this business stuff into the vase, and then try to fit in my rocks, they're not going to go in there. You're going to have a fight of trying to fit what is most important to you into your time. So I put that on the schedule first. My assistant, Pam, she's amazing. she helps to make sure that I stay in line with that. So that's the second thing, is having people that are really supportive to help you, whether it's a team member or family that understands and helps to keep you on track. Because the third thing that also keeps me is being able to do all of this is recognizing that you can be multi-passionate, but you don't have to do it all at that
Okay.
time. So, for example, I've written all these books and I have children's books. Now, I love doing them, but they're not a core part of my business. So, those often get shelved. Sorry. Those often get, those ideas for like children's books and stuff get shelved until I have maybe more of a quote unquote downtime. So that way the things that need to get done during the business times get done. But I haven't told myself no, because if, as someone who, as many of you listening as entrepreneurs are multi-passionate, if you tell yourself no on something, you become discouraged. You're going to think a lot more about it. So it's more of a not now. It's on the shelf. I'll come back to it when I have some more time. And those just end up becoming like projects and other things that I'm interested in. It's just all about priority of putting the rocks, then filling the sand, and keeping in line with what my big goals for each of the brands are.
We've talked about that you have some really cool resources. One of those is your free legal checklist for entrepreneurs. How can people find that?
Yes. So rachelbrenke.com, we have the checklist linked at the top. You guys can download that. It'll walk through, and this is a really good guide for you guys to work on before you even start any legal research for your business. So don't like freak out if you've heard some stuff today and you're like, oh my God, I don't know.
Yeah.
Go through the checklist. It is to fill in. It's not just to look at. It's for you guys to fill in. And whether you've been in business, a week, not yet in business, or even doing it for 10 years, this is a checklist that I use with my own clients and for myself on a regular basis, because as your business grows, your legal and business needs are going to change as well. So get it out. Make sure that it is like a fluid living thing that you go over time and time again. One quick download, you guys can do it. And it's really, really to the point. I think it's a good help.
People are listening. They're loving what you're sharing. They're going, hey, I'm in the beginning stages, or maybe I've made a mistake. How can people connect with you and start that journey of working with you?
Yeah, so I am the only Rachel Brenke in the world. So
Okay.
you guys can find me anywhere. I have 4 brother-in-laws, and anytime they bring home a Rachel, I'm like, nope, I've worked too hard for my branding and my SEO. You can't marry this one. No, you guys laugh, but it really is true. So I say all that to say rachelbrenke.com. That's the same on all the different platforms. But if you go to the main website, it'll filter you guys into the specific industries. If you don't see your industry, you can just keep sitting on Rachel Brenke. The podcast is pretty general. I get very specific on some of the topics, legal topics that I've touched on today. And I keep them nice and to the point, like 15 minutes, so you guys can get through the information and get enough knowledge to get working and protecting.
Very cool. We'll be right back with our rapid fire questions. Starting the journey of entrepreneurship, stepping into that dream and idea, it can be overwhelming, it can be scary, and you simply might not know where to start. Well, the Jumblethink team is here to help you, and we'd love to be part of your story to create the big idea and dream that you have within you. Swing on over to jumblethink.com to learn more about our coaching and consulting services. Again, that's jumblethink.com, and let's start the conversation. Drop us a note, hello@jumblethink.com, or fill out the contact form at jumblethink.com, and let's start the conversation to make that dream, make that idea, make that entrepreneurial goal a reality. Now let's join our rapid fire questions with Rachel Brenke. We're back with Rachel and rapid fire questions. Are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
I think I am.
Okay, so the first one is, what is one tip you would give someone with a big idea and dream and they don't know where to start?
Research. Get clear on this idea of how it's going to fit the need for people, who you're going to talk to, and how you're going to implement it. So just start with researching.
Very cool. What is one change you'd like to see in the world?
I would like to see people to embrace this unconventional careers. Kind of like what we're doing here, the podcasting, online education, and doing business. I feel like it opens up doors, and it really does allow for more time for us to be able to go out and help others on other levels outside of entrepreneurship, just to give back in our communities.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I want my kids to know that they can do absolutely anything that they do, that dreams shouldn't stay dreams. They should become goals. So once they start planning, it's a goal and they can make it happen.
Where do you find inspiration?
I find inspiration within myself, which sounds kind of
Okay.
like conceited, but because I look at what I'm interested in and I look to see if I can make it happen. And then I'm inspired by the idea of succeeding and not failing.
What is one book you think every dreamer or entrepreneur should read, and why?
The Purple Cow. Just like we talked about,
Yeah.
one tip you would give someone with a big idea or dream, and that is definitely where you would start. How can you stand out? I ask myself that before I post on social media every day. How can this post be different than everyone else's? Because millions of people are posting to Instagram or Twitter at this moment. So how can it be different? Purple Cow is a great book to help you kind of shift your mindset so you think that way.
What is one tool that is significant for the success of your business?
My calendar.
Okay.
I mean, to keep myself on task, my team on task, so that we can be productive and get what we need done in the least amount of time, but be me most effective.
What is one habit you find helpful in your life as an entrepreneur?
I get up, I answer what I call the low-hanging fruit emails, the ones
Okay.
quick shoot off emails, and then I go and I train and work out for the day.
Okay. How do you start and finish your day?
Start with coffee. And I would end with coffee if it wouldn't keep me up all night. I start with coffee and I end it just relaxing and trying to turn off technology.
If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing?
I would probably be a prosecutor for child sex crimes. That's something that's very near and dear to my heart. I volunteer locally with it some, and I would like to think that maybe one day, maybe when the kids are grown, that I'll be able to go and do that as a career to help.
That's very, very cool. And our final rapid fire question is, what is one dream you're still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
It's scary saying this out loud. I would love to become a professional triathlete.
Okay.
I'm getting old, so we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's so cool. As we wrap up today's episode, what is one last thought you want to leave us with today?
I think the biggest thing is you never have an issue until you have an issue. So make sure that you have a plan and that you're protected.
Rachel, it's been so much fun having you on the podcast. Thanks for giving us insights that I think many of us don't know we should be looking for, or we overlook, or we underthink the importance of it. So thanks for sharing such an important message.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Once again, I want to thank today's guest, Rachel Brenke, for taking time out, sharing her story, and giving us amazing insights into the legal aspects of entrepreneurship. If you want to learn more about Rachel or connect with her, swing on over to her website, rachelbrenke.com. You can also find the links in the episode notes. Our guest on Thursday's episode is Mike Compton of Three Chairs Productions. We dive deep into the world of creativity and ideas, the art of storytelling, collaboration, and how you can use video as an asset to tell your story. It is a super fun episode, so make sure to check out Thursday's episode with Mike Compton. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to encourage you, if you have a big idea and dream and you've been waiting for the right time to start, today is that day. Start making a step forward. Start making a plan to make that idea and dream a reality. I know it's scary. I know it's overwhelming, but it is worth it. It's worth the investment. It's worth the time, and it's worth the possibilities that you could see happen before you. So get out there, start doing something, anything to make those big ideas and dreams a reality and change the world around you.
Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps. Vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.